Hi, and welcome everyone. I hope you've all been able to access the webinar okay, and you were able to log in right here. During this webinar, you're going to see the little question and answer box right down here. I encourage you to use that. If during the webinar a question comes to mind, or you're wondering how a tip I've given can apply to your specific business, go ahead and jot it down right here in the question and answer section, and I'll try to answer it live during today's webinar. So first of all, let's see who we have today on the call. If you will, go ahead and use this question and answer box for me. Say hello, say where you're tuning in from. And if you can, let me know if you already have a profile or if you haven't opened one yet on Pinterest. And I'm just going to give this a second because I know it has a little bit of a delay. So let's see if any, okay, great. I'm hearing from a few of you guys. I see that we've got a couple people. We've got Athena from Texas. We've got Raina in DC. Great. Okay, you guys. Well, I am excited to get started today. It looks like you guys already have profiles. You're just wondering how to make them better, how to make them work for you instead of being work that you have to do. And today's presentation, it's all about really perfecting the profile, because when you get your foundation set up right from the start, then it can help you attract potential followers and potential customers for a long time running. So we put the effort in now, get the foundation going, and that's going to pay off in the long term. But before we dive in, since this is our first webinar of 3, and for a lot of us, this is our first interaction together, I thought I would take a second to introduce myself. So I am Danielle Miller, and I am tuning in today from the beautiful island of Maui. I moved here about 4.5 years ago from Massachusetts, and it is just delightful to be out here in the tropical area, with one exception, which is, you know, all my family's back on the East Coast. So I end up missing them a lot, and I often use social media to connect with them. So I'm on the platforms all the time. My favorite is Pinterest, but you can also find me on Facebook and Instagram and Google Plus and Twitter. I got started in business because of my father. He was an entrepreneur, and his father was also an entrepreneur. They all started their own businesses, and then when I was in high school, I started helping my father with his business and really started to learn how important small business is to our economy, to our local communities, and it's really important to me to help others who are trying to start their own businesses, because I truly and genuinely believe that when we start our own business and we work within our community, maybe we give back to our community, whether it's by offering them a great product or training or service, some kind of service like a coaching or graphic design service or something. When we're offering something like that, it's really valuable to our community, and then the dollars that come into our business can be spent locally, and that to me is so important. I think it really creates a stronger community and a better economy overall. So without further ado, I know you guys are here today to tune into Pinterest, so let's get started. I'm going to do a lot of screen sharing today, and you'll notice in between the screen sharing that you know, we pop back into the video. So just feel free to continue to ask questions, and even though there's a delay, I'll try to catch up to your question as soon as possible. Okay, so let's see here. Can everybody see the presentation okay? Yes. Okay. It looks like everybody's having a good time. You're able to see the presentation. Wonderful. Okay. So as you can see here in our presentation, oh, let me start at the beginning. Today we're discussing profile perfection. And within that, there's three main areas. We're going to talk about how to set up your profile. And then within that, there's different boards that you need to set up. So I'm going to go over what's really important to set up when it comes to getting a board ready that will attract people to follow your account. And then we're going to end today's presentation about how you can maintain a really good profile. Although when it comes to your profile setup and your board setup, it's mostly set it and forget it. Like, you only have to touch it once. You don't have to go and monitor those all the time. There are some things that you do need to keep top of mind as you continue to use Pinterest. So we'll get into that stuff in the profile maintenance section. All right. So one of the first questions I always get asked is, how many boards can I create? Or how many people can I follow? And there's really clear limitations. What you can see here, this is a screenshot from the Pinterest Help Center, and they've set a limit on, you can have a max of 500 boards. You can have a max of 200,000 pins. You can like 100,000 pins. And you can follow up to 50,000 pinners. And then at that point, you'll be cut off. And what Pinterest goes on to recommend in this section of their help website is that if you do hit these limits and you want to keep building, your only option is to open a second profile. So I'll show you how to use these limits wisely so that you don't run into any obstacles where you need to open a second profile, because that can be a real pain in the butt. Now, the second probably most popular question I get asked on Pinterest about Pinterest is, isn't Pinterest all about recipes? And it was at first. I joined Pinterest way back when you had to apply to get a Pinterest account. So you had to apply, and then you were accepted or denied the opportunity to open a Pinterest account. And that was quite a few years ago. So that's when I opened my first Pinterest account. And it was significantly geared towards crafts, tutorials, recipes. And now what has come to be is Pinterest is more of a phenomenal search tool with a very extensive library full of all kinds of helpful information. And the key word there is helpful. So the content that does best on Pinterest is something that helps the user by either empowering them to do something. So that might be a tutorial or a recipe. Inspiring them to do something. That could be a beautiful photograph or a creative tattoo idea. Or it's something that educates them. So it might be 7 statistics about Pinterest. It might be 5 fun facts about Facebook. General information like that also does really well. What I've highlighted for you on this slide are the go-to categories for Pinterest. So earlier this year, Ahology, which I always have the hardest time saying that one, Ahology, they released their 2015 Pinterest media study. And in the media study, they surveyed people to ask them, rank for us. If you were interested in information about these categories, are you more likely to look on Google? Are you more likely to ask a friend or look in a magazine or go to a different social network? And overwhelmingly in these 11 categories, people said Pinterest was their #1 go-to source. What that means for your business is that if you fall into one of these categories, participating in Pinterest is a no-brainer. And the second thing it means for your business is that when it comes to putting together your profile, know that if you can link what you offer, whether it's your product or your service, to one of these go-to categories, if you can make a relationship, then you'll likely get a little more attention on your content. So let me give you an example of what that might look like. In my Pinterest profile is all about business resources. So it's focused on marketing. So there's the big umbrella of business tips, and then there's the smaller umbrella of marketing tips, and within that, social media marketing tips. So if I were to do an article on my blog about the top 7 social media tips for wedding professionals, then that is a way that I'm marrying my topic with one of these go-to sources. In this case, it's the weddings category. All right, and during the question and answer period, if you guys are having a hard time brainstorming how your product can relate to one of these go-to categories, that's a great time for us to get into that. All right, so now that we kind of have a foundation, let's talk about what you're going to need on your profile, or what you'll be adjusting on your profile if you already have one. When you get on Pinterest, when you sign on, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little works wheel. And when you click on that, you get the option to look at your account settings and your profile settings. That's how you open this menu over here, where you can edit the information about your profile. So you're of course going to need a profile picture. And I'll tell you from personal experience, I've tested both putting my logo as my profile picture and putting my own picture as my profile picture. And I really started to get more traction and gain more followers when I used my personal picture. How you can apply that to your business is this. If you are kind of a one-woman show, if you're the face of your own business, then I would strongly recommend you consider making your Pinterest presence based on yourself and your name, as opposed to your company and your brand. On the other hand, if you have incredibly strong branding and your brand is not linked to your name on any other social networks or on your website, then it is appropriate to go ahead and use your business name as your business name here, and your logo or a picture of your product as the profile picture. Okay, so you're also in this name section, this business name section, you get 37 characters. So if I wanted to improve my profile, which is something a lot of you guys will be doing, you could put your name and then dash and put a couple keywords, because you have 37 characters that can fit there. So let me pause for a moment. I see I have a question. I want to get to that question because I feel like if we answer them as we go, it's going to help people really get a good grasp of the material today. So Athena is asking, she has one company but 2 departments for her company. One is weddings and the second are paper flowers. And she's curious as to how to incorporate these 2 things. So Athena, let me answer that for you. If I personally feel like paper flowers and weddings are very closely related, although the paper flowers might be used as home decor or party decor, they could also be the same style as somebody who'd be interested in your wedding services. So you have 2 options. One is to create 2 separate Pinterest accounts. That way you can brand your paper flowers and you can brand your wedding services. The second option is to create one umbrella brand, which could either be under your name or under your company name. And then just use different boards to attract the different people in each of your departments. Okay, I hope that makes sense for you. So because we get the option to create up to 500 boards, you could have 25 boards that really are attractive and focused on connecting with your Paper Flowers audience. And you could have another 25 boards that are really focused and targeted towards attracting your ideal wedding clients. All right, so let's switch back and we're gonna focus again on the profile. Now, again, you have 37 characters for your name, and it's okay to put your name and then put like a dash and some keywords. So I could write here dash social media marketing. That would help me show up as in the social media category under the pinners section. Now for your description, you get 160 characters, and I can't stress enough how important it is to put keywords here. Try to fit in at the very least your top 3 keywords while still having this description be legible. So on mine, you'll see I did Maui's marketing coach because marketing coach is a big keyword for me. And then I put a little dot to break the sentence and proceeded to say helping startups and entrepreneurs. So that's another keyword for me. Grow their businesses, grow your business is a keyword. With social media, email marketing, and blogging. So when reading this, somebody's going to get an idea of what I pin. Other great ways to come up with profile descriptions are to look at your competition. Find out if your competition's on Pinterest and look at what they've got as their profile description. Approach it as if you're a potential customer and get a feel for what you like and what you don't like, and this will help guide you in creating your board description. You also want to make sure you put your location if you're a local business, because that will help you attract more local clientele. All right, down here in the website section, you absolutely, undoubtedly want to link your website to Pinterest. This is an area where you get a live link on your profile, a clickable link that will drive people to your website. And right here, you can see that mine says site verified. If you don't yet have your website verified with Pinterest, I'm going to be doing a demo of how to verify your website and get rich pins in the readiness coming up later this week. And if you're on, I'm going to be doing that presentation specifically for WordPress. So if you're on a different website platform, I'm going to ask you to please send me an email, Danielle@mmmsocialmedia.com, and tell me what platform you're using for your website so I can help get you the information you need to verify your website and get rich pins. All right. And lastly, I don't consider a profile set up until you have at least 10 boards with 4 pins each. And that's because when somebody visits your profile, you'll see 5 boards across and 2 boards deep on a desktop. And that way you're making sure that when somebody lands on your profile, it looks full, it looks like you've been active for a while. This is going to be helpful in getting you more followers. All right, and it should go without saying, you absolutely want to squeeze in your keywords wherever you can. So put them in your board names, put them in your business name, and definitely put them in your profile description. I also recommend you try to get a username that matches your username on other social media platforms. So consider what your Instagram username is or your Twitter username and see if you can get the same one on Pinterest. All right, so once we have the basics of our profile set up, we need to take 2 minutes. Really, this is a super, super quick exercise. And we need to go into our settings and touch 3 main areas. So I'm actually going to do this as a live demo. So let's switch over to Pinterest so I can show you that. All right, so what you should be seeing here is Pinterest. And to get to your profile, you click on your name. And then to access the settings, here's that works wheel I was talking about. You click up on the works wheel and you can go to edit settings. So in the settings section, you have 5 main areas. You have your business account basics. So this is the information you gave Pinterest when you first signed up to change the email address it was linked to. This is where you would do that. If you needed to change your password, this is where you would do that. You can, putting in your business type is fairly optional. It's not a big deal. But this search privacy is extremely important. Businesses need to make sure that we have our search privacy setting set to no. Okay, so let me say that one more time. From our profile up to the works wheel to edit settings. In the business account basics section, make sure your search privacy is set to no. The personalization, that's up to you. Set them to no, because what the person will do is track where else you visit on the web, and then they would show you pins based on other websites you visited. And I just don't personally feel that's necessary. I'd rather have the privacy. So I like to set these to no. Scrolling down, you see the section of your profile that we just went over. And then this is another area I'd like you to touch, this notification section. I have a rule when it comes to social media. I shut off all notifications on all networks. And instead, I choose to block out time when I go to that network. And that's when I deal with the notifications for that specific network. So I highly recommend that. Otherwise, it can become too overwhelming. You can be getting emails that are a waste of time that you don't need. So this is your opportunity to shut off those notifications. Down here in the settings section, change the by email to no. You can edit the push notifications on your phone, and I'm going to show you right here how I can shut off any desktop notifications as well. So if you see that, it's as easy as clicking on and off, and you want to make sure they're set to no. The last section here I want to go over is the social networks. I've read conflicting things about linking your Pinterest account to Facebook. And the way that Pinterest presents it here is quite confusing because they're talking about logging in. So let's address both those areas. First of all, Pinterest doesn't connect to your Facebook page. It only connects to your Facebook profile. And we are all using Pinterest for business. So we don't want to be cluttering our personal profile with business-related pins. With that being said, I strongly suggest you turn your social network Facebook link to no, and do not connect it to your Facebook profile. However, when it comes to Twitter, I like having the Twitter option on. And you'll see in the slideshow that this turning your Twitter option on activates a little checkbox on your pins so that you can then post your pins to Twitter if you'd like. I also don't connect any of the other services, Google Plus or Gmail or Yahoo. They're just not necessary. And then we're going to get into apps later, but Tailwind is a great app for tracking your Pinterest performance. So this is where I have given Tailwind access to my Pinterest profile. All right, let's jump back to the slideshow. So here I just want to point out that turning on your Twitter link gives you this little box right here that says post to Twitter when you're pinning something. So even though I don't log into Pinterest with my Twitter, I do have to select the login with Twitter yes to activate that feature. All right. So what do you do once you have your profile set up with keywords and your settings set up correctly? Well, then it's time for you to go follow the right kind of people. This is important for a few reasons. The number one thing is that when you follow somebody, they get a notification that you followed them. So it's an opportunity for brand exposure, and it's an interesting way to build a relationship with people, or at least start that process. You know, if I'm going to relate this to your everyday life, it's like if you're going to a business meeting with somebody and they're across the room and you kind of give them a smile or a nod from across the room, that's what it's like to follow them. You're acknowledging that they exist, and they're kind of getting that notification that they've caught your attention. Now, who should you be following? Well, I definitely start all of the profiles that I create for business owners by following the industry influencers. So since we know we've got a couple viewers here today who are in the wedding industry, if you're in the wedding industry, you want to follow the big wedding names on Pinterest. You want to follow Wedding Wire. You want to follow The Knot. You want to follow Martha Stewart if their style is a match for your brand. Then you want to follow any local influencers in your area. So consider, you can go statewide or you can go citywide. If you are in Chicago, who are the top wedding professionals in Chicago? Do they have a Pinterest profile? If they do, at the very least, go check it out. And if they don't, then maybe take some to their other profiles on other networks to see what kind of people they're following. And lastly, I love following potential customers. And because of the notification it creates, not necessarily because of the pins that they're pinning. In order to follow these people and to find these people, you have to do a search exercise. Go through that exercise together once so I can kind of demo for you how you actually go about finding really good quality boards to follow. I'm going to exercise in two ways. We're going to start with the demo in Google, and then you'll see how that transfers over to Pinterest. Okay, so give me a minute. I'm going to switch my screen here. Okay, so here what you're seeing is the very common, Google homepage. And for this exercise, I'm just going to search Pinterest tips. So I'm on Google and I'm searching the words Pinterest tips. So Pinterest tips would be one of my keywords, and you would put in one of your top keywords. I'd like you to do this exercise for your top 5 keywords. So put in Pinterest tips and then see what appears as the search results in Google. Look through and see if any of the URLs are based on Pinterest. So right here we can see that Beth Cantor, her Pinterest board is showing up on page 1 of Google for the keyword Pinterest tips. This would be a really great board for me to follow because it's somebody who has achieved one of the goals I would like to achieve, which is getting one of my boards for one of my top 5 keywords showing up in Google. So then I recommend you click over to Pinterest and check out that board. See if it has a lot of followers. So in this case, Beth's board has over 6,000 followers. And then make it a point to follow that board. This is somebody who's an influencer who has done it right. One of the things I see that I could do better is that Beth doesn't have a board description here. So I see that there's opportunity for improvement and that I can kind of mimic what she's doing, but potentially get on the first page of Google for that keyword. Okay, so that's one example, which is how to search Google for your keywords and then see if there are any boards that are showing up, because those are really good influencer boards that you want to follow. And now that we're in Pinterest, there's another way to do it. I'm going to go back to the wedding example because I feel like that's going to be really relevant for a lot of you. So in this, up in the Pinterest search bar, I searched the word wedding. And when you do that, you get your guided search suggestions. And then beneath that, you get 4 options for filtering your search results. And so you're going to click on this boards option. When you do, what this does is it pulls out the boards that have the keyword wedding in them for you to quickly just follow. And so these results are going to be a mix of influencers, potential customers, and if I were to add some other keywords like Chicago wedding, that would also give me the results for my local influencers. But before you follow everyone, let me just warn you on this. When you follow a board, all the pins that they create will show up in your news feed. So I like to make sure that they're relevant people. So I would click on the board and then check to see how many followers it has. So holy moly, this board has, you know, over 748,000 followers. This is a really, really popular board. And it would be smart of you, if you were in the wedding dress industry, to follow this board and maybe leave some comments on these pins that were supportive, helpful, and definitely not spammy. Don't pitch your services at all in the comments. Simply leave something that says, oh my God, this dress is beautiful, or yes, I saw this dress on a bride recently and it was stunning, or yes, I think that this style is trending. Thing that's helpful and relevant but not spammy. The reason that you do that, the reason you go leave comments on all these pins, and I'll just show you, you click on the pin and you scroll down to leave a comment. So this is where I could leave a comment. And the reason that you do that is because then your comment with your picture and your name shows on that pin to everybody who's looking at it. And that can be great for brand exposure and getting followers. Okay, so I feel like right now you guys are in a really good spot. You know where, you know where to go look for your influencers. You know what boards, how to search by board, and how to search on Google for popular boards in your category. And then, so you basically, you know how to do this exercise over here. And like I said, please do that for the top 5 keywords. That way you'll establish a nice foundation of the people that you're following. Okay. Now we get to talk about the individual board setup. With that being said, each board that you create is an opportunity for you to show up in that board search result we just did as a demo. So one of the things you might have noticed is that when I typed in the keyword wedding and then I sorted by boards, all of those boards had the word wedding in the title. And that's a keyword match that you're seeing. So if I was typing Chicago wedding, the board titles would all say Chicago wedding. That's why right here, this very first bullet that you see, or checkbox that you see, is about coming up with a board name. And that board name needs to be your keyword. Although for a long time, people were recommending that your board titles be creative, I want to strongly recommend that you opt for keywords over creativity in this case. Although a board name can be up to 100 characters long, you should try to keep it 20 characters or less. And that's because your board name gets cut off. You know, it does those little ... It gets cut off if it's longer than 26 characters, I think. So aim for 20 characters in your description. You can usually fit 2 to 3 words. All right, and I'm on the next slide. I'll show you there's 2 ways that you can create boards, and that when you create a board, that's when you get this nice little menu here to pop up. So up in the name, that's where you'll put your keywords. Remember, try to stick to 2 to 3 words, roughly 20 characters. And then the board description. Now, this is an overlooked area. We just saw in the example, not even Beth, who has a stunning amount of followers, has taken the extra effort to fill in the description. The description is important for 2 main reasons. 1, it's an opportunity to write down your keywords again. And 2, it's an opportunity to speak directly to the people who might be following this board and encourage them to go check out your website for more information. So a great description would say, let's go through a demo. Let's say our board name is Chicago Weddings. Then in the description, I would put fantastic ideas for wedding venues in Chicago, wedding planners in Chicago, and fun events to do with your wedding party in Chicago. And then I would put, if you're interested in learning more about having a wedding in Chicago, come visit my website at www.website.com. That way people, although the link is not clickable, people can very easily copy and paste that into their web browser to go right to your website. You've got your description filled in. You want to pick your category. When you pick your category, this is kind of a finding the best match situation. You can't create your own categories, and sticking to those top 11 that I showed you at the beginning of today's slideshow is a really good idea. So try to link up your boards with categories like weddings, tattoos, photography, food and drink, crafts, the popular categories that people search often. What you'll see here in the bottom section of the board setup is it's asking you if you want to turn this into a map board. So map boards are the opportunity to link a pin to a specific pinpoint on a map. So it's kind of bridging the gap between Pinterest and a Google map. So you might pin an image of a wedding venue and then put the pinpoint on the map where that wedding venue is located. Map boards are best used if every single pin on that board is a physical location. Otherwise, I find that they're not really effective. Secret boards would make the board not searchable. So secret boards are great if you want to collect something for your personal use. Maybe you want to pin potential blog post ideas, or you want to pin things that you might want to share on other social networks later. You can have secret boards called, to share these on Facebook, and you can have a secret board of great ideas that you might want to post about on Facebook. So let's get into the board cover photos. And this is perfect timing because I have another question specifically about board cover photos. So Athena asks, someone once told me it's best to have a branded cover photo for each board. Would you suggest the same? And the best way to answer this question is to go through a quick demo of how a Pinterest user might find your board. Branded, what branded cover photos mean are that the image that shows on your board is very intentionally designed to either have your brand colors, your brand fonts, or maybe your logo on them. So let's go to Pinterest and kind of do a little demo here. Oh, there's my Pinterest. Okay, here it is. So let me go to Pinterest here. So these larger images that you see on each of these boards, that's called the cover photo. In order to make an image your cover photo, you first set up the board and then you have to add pins to it. And then you get to choose one of the pins as the board cover photo. So in Athena's question, if you had a branded board cover photo that you wanted to use, you would first have to pin that image to your board. Then hit the edit button and go to the option that says cover and change your cover by scrolling through your recent pins and moving them up or down to set the cover the way you want. That I wanted to show, let's look at this question from the ideal follower. So let's say somebody is looking up Chicago weddings. And they're looking for boards to follow. So maybe they head over to this boards tab. So now, scrolling through all of these top boards, one of the things I notice is that none of them are branded. And that's because people don't want to necessarily follow you because of your brand. They want to follow you because of your style. And so all of these top board results are showing up with stunning, clear, simple images that are eye-catching. Now, if I quickly scroll up through, this is actually a practice I go through often. I search my keywords, I go to boards, and I quickly scroll through to see if anything's popping out. To me, this one pops out a little bit because of the colors. So I personally would choose a colorful, eye-catching image instead of a branded image for my board cover photo. And I do that because I think it grabs more attention when somebody's searching through the boards like this. So a photo like this one here or this one here, these are eye-catching to me. The darker photos seem to fade to the back. Excuse me, I need a sip of water here. And like something like this one, it just fades all the way to the back, not captivating my eye. This one over here, my eye went to immediately, lots of color. It's a little bit busy, but there's a lot of color. So just to answer that question one more time and reinforce you, I personally want to recommend you choose a colorful, eye-catching image as your board cover photo instead of a branded cover photo, because that's just going to scream to somebody that you're a business. Although on Pinterest, people do like to follow brands and boards, brands and businesses, so won't be too bad. There's one more lesson on your slideshow, one more tip that I can demo right here, which is that I recommend every single one of your boards has at least 4 pins. So if you create a board, you instantly find at least 4 things to add to that board. And that's because you need one image to be your cover photo, and then you'll be filling these 3 bottom slots, additional pins on that board. So the board looks full if it has at least 4 pins on it. This I want to talk about when it comes to setting up your boards like that is there's 2 and how many pins that you have on your board that significantly affect how quickly they get followers. So have at least 10 pins on it, because there's something that happens when you hit that 10 pin mark that gets more people to follow you. The next one, at least 50 pins on your board. Personally, on my account, I've experienced many times, like 3 or 4 or 5 times now already, where as soon as I hit that 50 pins mark, that board started getting more followers faster. I'm not quite sure why it works. It could be partially because the amount of pins that I have out there that are being searched for, or it could be because it visually looks like a bigger collection. But just recommend that you aim for at least first hit the 4 mark so your board looks full, then hit the 10 mark so more people are likely to follow it, and aim to get your boards up to 50 pins each, because something magical happens then where they really start to get a lot of attention. Okay, so now we can switch back over to the presentation. All right. So like I said before, in your description, just make sure to also put your website. That's a great way to get traffic off of Pinterest into your website. All right, now let's talk a little bit about board setup. There are 2 ways to create a board. You can create one with intention by going to your profile and hitting the big Create Board button that's going to be on the left-hand side. When I say creating with intention, when you hit the Create a Board button here, that's when you're popping open this menu where you get to fill in the description and the category and everything. On the other hand, if you're creating a board on the go, maybe you're just pinning, you didn't think that you needed a board about this topic, but now you found a couple of great pieces of content that you want to create a whole new board. When you go to pin something, you're given the option, if you type up in the search board, in the search bar, you type in the search bar a word. So say I wanted to create a Chicago weddings board. So up here in the search, I would type Chicago weddings. And if I didn't already have a board named Chicago weddings, it will give me the option to create a new board on the go. The problem is that you fill in the description or category when you do it this way. So you need to remember to then go back into that board later and fill in those fields. So your first assignment, or your first kind of go-to task, is to create 25 boards with your top 25 keywords. And if you do that, I recommend you going about it via this Create Board option so that you're filling in the description and category for every one of those 25 boards. With your boards all set up and a couple of pins on each of them, you want to make sure that you're choosing the right cover photo. We talked about choosing something that was colorful and eye-catching. Then you can drag and drop your boards to put them in different orders. So if you don't know what drag and drop means, it means click on a board and don't let go. So just keep the click held down and then drag your mouse to, up a little higher in your screen, and you'll notice that the board will move to wherever your mouse is going. And then just let go of the click to drop your board where you want it. Lastly, I just wanted to give you a couple of ideas for boards that you might not have thought of. So if you've got maybe 10 or 15 keywords, but you're getting stuck for other board ideas, I love having a top repinned board. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into lesson 2 on fast tracking your reach, because creating a top repinned board gives you instant impressions. It gets a lot more people seeing your pins. All right, then we want to create a seasonal board. So seasonal boards could be literally the season, so spring, summer, fall, winter. Or you might go for seasonal holidays. So you might do a Breast Cancer Awareness Month board. You might do a Valentine's Day board. You might do Thanksgiving board. Think about what holidays your particular celebrates and come up with boards for those holidays. When there's a holiday, they tend to trend, which means they have a peak in how often that they're being searched. You start creating a Valentine's Day board in December, and you're pinning to it all throughout December and January. Come February, when everybody's ready for those ideas, you're more likely to show up in the search result. All right, create local boards. So great ideas for local boards are create a board of all your local parks. We talked about if you're in the wedding industry, create a board of all your local wedding venues. Create a board of your local restaurants. Create a board for your local grocery stores. Things like that that are just valuable collections to somebody who lives in your geographic area, and they can get a lot of attention. So yeah, create some local boards. Definitely put the geographical name in the board title. So for example, I mentioned earlier that I live on Maui in Hawaii. So I might do something like Great Maui Hikes or Best Maui Restaurants. And those would be really good local themed boards. And lastly, just reinforcing, you should create boards about those go-to categories, trying to find a way to match your business with the category. So you might do something like social media for wedding planners, social media for photographers, because photography and weddings are both in the go-to categories that we talked about. Okay. Right now, I just want to pause for a moment. I want to encourage you guys to take a big, deep breath. We've already been through so much information. We're a little more than halfway through today's presentation. And this next tip's a big one. So let's all take a big inhale, exhale, relax, clear some space. Now we can all focus on measurable results. So one of the things that I've been talking about is about really using Pinterest to create measurable, tangible, trackable results and sales for your business. One of the easily trackable factors are how many email subscribers you're getting. And a beautiful thing that you can do with Pinterest is you can turn one of your boards into an opt-in opportunity. If you're not sure about the word opt-in, if you're unfamiliar with it, opt-in is when somebody gives you their email address and says, yes, I'd like to receive emails from you. They're opting in to getting emails from you. Now, I call these email opt-ins via Pinterest pin mail, because what you're doing is you're creating a Pinterest board and you're letting people know if they would like to get these pins delivered to their email inbox every week, they can sign up for that. I have a great example of how this works on my personal profile. So my #1 board on my profile is called Best of Business. And then it says, get these pins delivered to your inbox by signing up here. And I put the link to my MailChimp sign up form. Now, in this demo, I'm using MailChimp because they make it so easy to deliver this pin mail, and they're a free service. If you don't use MailChimp, maybe you use Constant Contact or GetResponse or Aweber, look into and see if they offer RSS-driven campaigns. So you can see what I'm talking about right here, RSS-driven campaigns. So in MailChimp, what you would do is you would create a new list for your Pinterest opt-in. You would create the sign-up form, however you want it to look, and MailChimp will give you the link to that sign-up form. Then you set up what they call an RSS-driven campaign to be mailed to that list. So you would hit select here on RSS-driven campaign. You would choose which list the campaign is going to be sent to. And then it asks you, what is the URL or the link to the RSS feed? So on Pinterest, one of the very unique things this social network offers is that your profile and each of your individual boards can link to an RSS feed. And in order to be easier than it sounds, it's like way crazy easier than it sounds, all you do is go to the board that you want to highlight and take the URL. So you'll see just right here down in the bottom, and then that slide thing appears. So let me a second to disappear. So you'll see www.pin/MMM social media, which is my profile, /best of business, which is the name of the board. And then to get the RSS link, all you do is write .rss at the end of your board name. Make sure that you're not putting a slash right there. Make sure you're just doing the end of the board name .rss. And that's how you turn on an RSS email-driven campaign. What will happen is now if somebody subscribes to this email list every week, and you can change the time frame, you can have it send out weekly or daily. Every week, anybody who's subscribed to this list will get an email, which you see here, with the new pins that have been added to that board this week. All right, now this can get a little tricky, but it's super powerful. It's helped me already get over 100 new email subscribers. And I want to help walk you through this process. So you can always reach out to me via email. That's part of this workshop, is the accountability and the coaching. So just send me an email to Danielle@MMM Social Media if you have any questions about setting up your pin mail. Okay, so now we're ready to dive into profile maintenance. When it comes to profile maintenance, there's a fairly new trend happening. And that trend is about keeping a very high quality Pinterest presence so that Pinterest sees you as somebody who's popular and whose pins have a lot of activity and action happening on them. Now, sometimes we pin things thinking people will love them, and that pin gets no attention. It doesn't get clicks and it doesn't get repins. In order to make sure that your profile is full of high quality stuff, you want to delete the pins that don't work. Now, this seems a little counterintuitive at first. You're thinking, gosh, why am I going to go through the effort of pinning something if a month later I'm likely to delete it? And that's because every pin that you make is a test. You're testing to see if that's content your audience likes. And if in 30 days that pin has not gotten any repins, then you should delete it so that what you're left with on your profile is a collection of incredibly popular and active pins. This will not only be more valuable for your customers, but it's also going to show Pinterest and tell Pinterest that your account has a better ratio or better success rate in terms of what you pin. So they're more likely to let your pins show up in search or recommend people follow your profile. In order to delete a pin, so this is a process I go through once a month. I go into my profile and then I click on the pins option. And from there, I scroll through my pins and I look for any pin that has less than 2 repins. So for you, it might be you're deleting pins that have no repins whatsoever, or if you start to develop a track record where you're getting, 5 5 or 10 repins on every pin, then you might say, okay, well, I'm going to delete anything that doesn't have more than 2 repins. So you kind of up the ante. And you just, to delete the pin, you just hover over it and you click on the little pencil icon and hit delete pin on the menu that pops up. So like I said, try to go through this process once a month, go through your pins and delete anything that doesn't have a lot of activity on it. And that includes stuff that goes back to your website, because really you only want pins that are getting a lot of action and attention left on your profile. Because pins that don't get repinned are not likely to show up in search results. Your pin needs repins and clicks in order to show up at the top of the search results. Okay, along the same idea here, another piece of profile maintenance is about unfollowing the people who are unnecessary. Like I said, you might go in, do the search for weddings, you might click over to boards, and you might follow 25 people because you're creating that notification and therefore maybe getting a little more attention for your profile. But after 30 days, if they haven't been pinning anything that was of value to you, there's no need to keep them as somebody you're following. And I personally think it shows better if you have a higher number of followers than the number of people you're following. So click over to your following section of your profile, click over to boards, and you can quickly go through and unfollow the boards that you don't recognize. Another way to do this is go to following and then go to the pinners tab. And quickly you can just hit follow, unfollow. So let's say, for example, you only follow one of my 80 boards. Then when you click the pinners tab here, it will show as following, but not the whole account. Actually, let's do this as a demo. I love doing demos. I think they're so much easier to follow. I hope you guys appreciate the demos too. They're way easier to show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're back in Pinterest. And I'm going to my profile. And like I said, from my profile, I'm clicking on following to find out who I'm following. Now, I don't follow any topics. For me personally, they're not relevant. But if you do, that's what will show. And I was talking about going to this pinners tab. And so one of the things that I was trying to explain but having a little bit of trouble is that although I'm following these people, see how the button says follow? So you would think that I wasn't following them, but what it means is I'm following only one of their boards. I'm not following their whole account. So for instance, for Beth's account, I only just followed her one Pinterest tips board. Now for Anna, like this is actually a good example. So for Anna, I see that she doesn't have a lot of followers. She has a good amount of pins, but her stuff's not really popular. And I only follow, maybe 1 or 2 of her boards. I don't follow her whole account. So I can quickly go through and I'm going to hit follow, and then I'm going to hit unfollow. Now what it does is take Anna out of the people that I'm following. So in this case, I follow everything that Chris posts, and if I hit unfollow, now I'm not following Chris at all. So your goal is to get it to say the word follow in red. Yeah, like these people too, I would unfollow, except I happen to know these people in person, and so that's kind of where I draw the line. If I've met the person, then I like to keep following them. All right, so I hope that little demo made sense. You want to go through, unfollow people who don't have a lot of followers or whose stuff you don't recognize as valuable or repin worthy. All right, back to the presentation. Now I just want to give you we're going to wrap up the training part of today's presentation, talking about tips for pinning and tips for repinning. And then section, but I noticed that some of you guys have had to run. I did get those emails that the timing wasn't exactly perfect for a lot of you. And so if there's no live Q&A, I am available by email to answer any of your questions. And I look forward to hearing from you for sure. So definitely send me those emails. All right, so let's talk about a couple of tips. First of all, if you don't have it yet, I highly recommend you get the Pin It button or Pin It extension. If you're using Chrome as your web browser, so the different web browsers you might be using Safari, you might be using Internet Explorer, you might be using Firefox, or you might be using Chrome. And so it doesn't matter which one that you're using, you should go to about.pinterest.com/en/goodies, and I've put the link right here. That will take you to where you can install the Pin It button on your web browser. Or if you're in Chrome, you just go up to the upper right-hand corner where you see 3 little lines, which is your menu. And then you go to More Tools, and then you go to Extensions. And if once you're on the extensions page, you can scroll all the way down to Get More Extensions and search for the Pin It button. That's Pin It button offered by Pinterest.com. There's a lot of fake Pin It buttons out there, so definitely search for the one offered by Pinterest.com. And then you just add to Chrome. And what that allows you to do is have this button in your web browser so that you can pin from any site. So let's do a little demo of that. All right, let's see. Yeah, this will be a good place. So I'm going to kind of share my main screen here. Okay, so from this main screen, I think you guys can see up here, I have this P. And let me just unhide my bookmarks bar so it's not distracting. All right, so I'm talking about getting this little P, and what that will do is if I go to a blog page, and I click on the blog post. So if you're on somebody's blog page now, you can just click your little P up in the corner, and it automatically searches that web page for all the images available, and you can pick which one to pin from that page. And all of these will automatically link back to the website you were just on. So it's a very convenient tool. And again, to get it, you're using, if you're in Chrome, you're using these 3 little bars, which drops your menu down. Your tools, and you're going to extensions. And when you get to your extensions, you scroll all the way down, and there's an option that says Get More Extensions. And then you can search for Pin It button and look for the one offered by Pinterest. And you can click on it to find out more about it. And so you're looking for the one offered by Pinterest.com. And now you can just hit the Add to Chrome button, and it will be installed for you on your computer. Okay, so that was a little demo about how to get the Pin It button installed. Also, like I said, you can go to pinterest.com it's about.pinterest.com/en/goodies. Scroll down here, they're talking about adding the Pin It button to your website, making board widgets, and getting just overall adding the pin it button, which is very helpful. Okay. So let me switch back. There we go. Okay, so now we're back on tips for pinning. I do want to talk about scheduling, but I'm going to save that for a minute. I want to talk about detailed description and frequencies first. So detailed descriptions are really important when you pin something. A really nice, simple habit to create is to put your board name first in the pin description. And that's because you are creating boards that are named your keywords. So if you're putting your board name first in your pin description, you're automatically putting your most important keyword first. And then you can add your description, which I like to get a little casual, a little more fun with. So if I was pinning a social media tip to my social media tips, social media tips dash. I love this one. It saved me so much time. You know, how to use the pin it button, mmmsocialmedia.com. And then I might put in parentheses, Pinterest tips, social media marketing, Facebook, you know, with just commas separating my keywords that these are alternate keywords that might be helpful to show up for in search. The other thing I want to mention about the detailed descriptions is you do not want to just put the title of the blog post as the description. And that's because with rich pins, which I'm going to dive more into in the Ready Your Website lesson, with rich pins, if your description matches the article title, it will just show no description at all. And so maybe we can talk about that for a second. I can show you what that looks like. Okay, so let me go back to my profile. And I know that a lot of people do this on my group board, so we'll go to my group board for an example. And it's one of the things that drives me a little batty, so I'm happy to talk about this with you guys. Okay, so I'm scrolling through. First of all, if you're not sure the difference between a rich pin and a regular pin, this pin right here is a rich pin, and this here is a regular pin. So a rich pin has a little image and says what website it's coming from. Then it puts the article title in bold, and then the description underneath. So in this case, Steve, he put the article title, but he added to it. So it did not erase the description entirely. So that was really good. But in another example, let's see, I'll just keep scrolling for another second. Let's see if we can find one. Oh, well, I guess everybody's doing really good. Or I might have just done a cleanup too where I deleted a lot of them. Basically what it shows, so is it would show this exact pin, but just have this whole section would be gone. So it would only show the rich pin without any description underneath. I mean, showing you the example, I guess, is going to take a little longer than I thought. But in essence, just make sure that you add a little something instead of just the board title, because it does make a difference in how your pin shows if you're pinning from a site that has rich pins. Okay, and then the other thing I'll point out here is I did put up a warning in my group board that pins may be deleted if they don't get at least 2 repins, to reinforce that idea that I do delete pins that aren't effective from my profile and from my boards. All right, now just to talk about frequency for a second while I'm transferring over and showing you the slideshow again. When it comes to how frequently you pin, there's one big motivational factor, which is the more often you pin, the faster you're going to get followers. And it's really as simple as that. A friend of mine, Jeff C., and I, we both started pinning at roughly the same time for our businesses. And I committed to pinning, 2 to 3 times a week. And he committed to pinning 1 to 2 times every day. And the follower growth that we've experienced has been so different. He really has gained a lot of followers faster. He's also putting out amazing content. So if you're not familiar with Jeff C. of Manly Pinterest Tips yet, I highly recommend you check him out. He's fantastic. And he puts out podcasts and Google Hangouts and video calls and blog posts and everything. So, but it also does have a huge effect how often you pin. The more frequently you pin, the more likely you are to get exposure and therefore followers. So try to sprinkle your pins out, maybe pin once in the morning and once at night. Even if you're only spending 10 minutes each time, it will pay off a lot to try to pin more often. Okay, so let's switch back to the slideshow. So I do want to address this idea of scheduling pins. There are a couple of tools out there available. Tailwind has not only are they great for analytics, but they do have a paid option that lets you schedule pins. And Viral Tag has a paid option that lets you schedule pins. And the cool thing is with Viral Tag, if you are willing to write a blog post about them, an honest review, they're not pitching you to just, pat their back at all. If you write an honest review for them, they'll give you 60% off their plan. And I think their plan's only like $29. So it's pretty affordable to use Viral Tag. Or I'm doing a little experiment right now with a free tool called Traffic Wonker. And they let you schedule pins and then they delete them the next day. So it's all about that sprinkle the feed idea. And I'll let you know how that goes. I'm a little bit undecided right now as to the effectiveness of Traffic Wonker. But I did want to put it on there because I wanted to let you know that it exists. It's out there. All right, so we're about 10 minutes from the end of today's presentation. I just want to spend the last 10 minutes talking about repinning. If you have not yet checked out Pinterest copyright rules, I recommend you do, but I will let you know in a nutshell. They basically say original pins that you create, create your own original pins that are your own content, and that's fantastic, but you're not supposed to pin copyrighted content. And the loophole is that if you re-pin something, you're not responsible for the copyright. So go ahead and repin things often. Or if you're visiting a blog post and you see that they encourage you to pin something, you can pretty much assume they're not worried about copyright. So I'm going to do a lot of this repinning stuff as demo or tutorial style, but let's go through it real quick. You want to repin things that are popular. Excuse me, things that are popular, because then your board might be recommended to follow. You want to use the source search function to quickly find things that you might want to pin, and you want to repin your influencers. Little demo about this. The first tip was pick up on what's popular. And what I mean by that is go to your little menu up in the search bar and go to your popular feed. This is basically like what's trending right now. What's on the move, what's really, if there's anything relevant for my business, because this is kind of where the style is headed. And so it's a good idea to add popular pins to your boards. Instagram accounts for home improvement inspiration. I happen to have an Instagram board. Now, let me just point out, because I just noticed it too, how it says promoted by right here. That tells me that this pin is an ad. And I'm also looking like rich pin, not a rich pin. I prefer to pin from rich pins because then the website source is already verified. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything really pointing out to me that's related to what I do. You might be seeing things that would be appropriate for your business though. The ones that I'm seeing are all ads. So let's just do an example. So let's do, all right, let's do how to repurpose a fridge. I don't know, this is just an example. But anyway, so now we're talking about repinning. So I'm clicking the pin it button. I am absolutely, undoubtedly changing the description. This is something I really want to encourage you guys to do. So I would do something like recycle and repurpose an old refrigerator. Did I spell it right? Recycle and repurpose an old refrigerator into a ice chest for your patio. So what I did there is I tried to get a couple of keywords in. Recycle, repurpose, ice chest, and patio would be things that point out as keywords to me. And then I can figure out whatever board I want to add it to and pin it. Now, for the source search I talked about, that would be using the URL. Now, I talked about this in the 5 Pillars webinar. I did a demo, but now let's kind of revisit it. So if you go to pinterest.com/source/ and then you put in a website. So one of the websites I always do, and you can see right here, is entrepreneur.com. I love to repin their content. It's really relevant for my customers, my clients. So type in www.pinterest.com/source/ and then a website that you like to follow. And then you'll see all the pins from that website and you can go through and repin these. So this is a great way to quickly find pins that you might want to repin. And finally, here's an example. So I'm just going to point it out. Here's somebody whose pin does not have a description because they put in exactly what it said here as their description, so it just deleted it. So it's kind of a missed opportunity for some branding and for injecting your brand voice. Okay, lastly, we talked about repinning influencers. So in my industry, Social Media Examiner they're a huge influencer for me. Their content is awesome. So I search Social Media Examiner, I click on pinners because I want to get to their profile, and then I click on their profile. Now what I can do is just click on pins here, and I can quickly search through some of the most recent stuff that they've pinned to add it to my boards. And this is important because this is stuff that's probably going to take off in terms of how many shares it gets. And when I do the demo, what you'll see is I'll pin one of these, and right after it will suggest a board down here for me to follow. And if you want your board to be one of the ones that suggests people follow, that pin needs to live on your board. Okay, so let's, how how to tell stories with Facebook and Instagram carousel. I'm looking at the description. I don't get the typo there, so I'm going to change it. How to tell stories with Facebook and Instagram carousel via Examiner. I want to switch it up. So I might say social media telling stories with Facebook and Instagram carousel. All right. And then find the board that I want to put it on. And now watch, when I hit pin it, down here, you're going to see it pops up. It's going to ask me if I want to see my pin, and then it's going to recommend a board I follow. So there it is. You might also like to follow this board. So if you want to be one of the ones down here that it's recommending, that pin has to live on your site. So the lesson that I'm giving right now, just to kind of review, is that if you repin your influencers, if you go to an influencer, you look at what they've pinned recently, and you repin it, you can kind of get on the early wave of boards that get recommended that people follow when that pin starts to get repinned a lot. Okay. Thank you guys for sticking in. You're total troopers. We're like absolutely in the home stretch. I just wanted to address the issue of repinning duplicates. So sometimes you have a pin that you want to get attention from more than one of your boards. And I'm just quickly going to delete this since it was an example and it doesn't make sense for my business. Okay, so if you have a pin that you want to add to more than one of your boards, then you can do that. It's okay to repin duplicates. So you see Heather Crabtree's down here, her pin, and she's up here. But it doesn't look spammy because I did a lot of other pins. I pinned a lot of other things in between. So that's kind of the tip I have on repinning duplicates, is pin things in between. And if you're going to repin it to the exact same board, then also leave like a lot of time. So not only add a lot of pins, but leave, you know, a month in between when you go to repin a duplicate. And make sure you're repinning something that's getting a lot of repins and not just trying to get attention on a pin that's not working. All right, and the last tip that I have, because we're 1 minute from wrapping up here, is you can move copy pins. And this could save you a lot of time when it comes to getting some traction on your pins. Or the way I find I use it most is I talked about deleting what's not working. Not only does that apply to your pins, it also applies to your boards. If you have boards that are just not working, they're not getting a lot of attention, then you want to delete the whole board. But before you do, you're going to click into the board and you're going to click the button that says Move Pins. You will scroll through and you'll be clicking on the pins that have a lot of repins on them. And when you do, you'll see the little check mark turns red. And then you can move those popular pins onto a new board before you delete them. So then you just hit move or copy. I think those terms are pretty self-explanatory. And you choose what board you want to put them on. And then you hit move and all the pins will go there. This is also a really quick way to go through and delete your pins that you don't want from a board. Whew. Well, you guys are some incredible troopers. Holy moly, an hour and a half of how to perfect your Pinterest profile is a lot of information to take in. But I want to give you kind of this simple summary of what we just went over. So I have this one more slide, and I just want to give you an idea of the 9 are really important to take away from today's presentation. So the last thing that we're going to cover here is with your profile, it's just the review. So what you learned today. So today you learned it's really important to have a keyword-rich profile, that you're going to put the keywords in your profile name and your settings, shutting off email notifications, making sure your profile is searchable, and linking Twitter. And then you're going to follow influencers. If you do those 3 things, you've got a pretty good foundation for your profile. With your boards, you're going to create 25 keyword boards. So come up with your top 25 keywords, and there's a lesson for that in the members area. There's a keyword research tutorial. So my theme and the board description. Then rearrange your boards. Drag and drop them into the order that is most important. Boards at the top, and put all of your group boards or your. Lastly, when it comes to boards, make sure you set your board cover photos. Choose something colorful and eye-catching. That's going to help attract attention for you. Lastly, with profile maintenance, make sure you're going back through and deleting what's not working. Keep your profile really high quality. Unfollow the people that are unnecessary. So if you're not catching yourself repinning their content or getting some value from having followed them, then unfollow people. It's totally okay, and it's going to help keep your profile high quality. And lastly, pin and repin smarter. Look for rich pins when it comes to repinning. It's kind of a faster way to go about it. Use the pin it extension, and make sure you're filling in your descriptions with your keywords. And you guys are really good to go. I did include one last slide that will just tell you what's trending each month on Pinterest. And this is what was trending last year in 2014. But I've been using it, and I found it's really relevant for this year too. So I think you guys will get some use out of that. And man, thank you all for tuning in. You guys rock. I'm so happy that we're going to be spending the next 3 weeks together, really working on your Pinterest accounts. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. Aloha, and I will tune in with you next Wednesday. Bye.